Hi pals, it's me, RT there in pronouns only, and this video is just a general update about what the fuck is going on with my medication and treatment plan for both Crohn's and Takayasu's. I was going to do a video on propranolol, but I feel like it's a little bit too soon for me to do that video, so maybe in a few weeks time, maybe a month's time, I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely been a lot of videos I posted on here. They don't really get many views, but for anybody who cares, anybody in maybe a similar situation to me, I just wanted to give like a general summarize of what's been going on and that, you know, what has finally happened and what we're now doing. So yeah, I'm not even really sure what the past videos were that I talked about this stuff in, because sometimes it was like I would recap this in bits of other videos. So I'll do a general recap. In 2019, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in June at a hospital that I'm no longer under the care of. They immediately put me on Mercaptopurine just as sort of like luck of the draw. It's, I think at the time, was a lot newer medication that was seemingly doing quite well, possibly cheaper than other medication options, and is similar to Azathioprine, which is one that's been around for a while. About 6 weeks after that is when I had a Crohn's flare-up of erythema nodosum, which I did do a video on and a blog post on that you can go and check out more details on that, which ended up switching my care to my local hospital, local teams of IBD, gastro, doctors, nurses, etc., which I was pleased about. I don't really think I had much of a chance to get to know the first team anyway. I think I literally had one appointment and then had that whole ordeal with one of their hospital's phlebotomists, so didn't really want to go back. And the fact that the hospital gaslit me after that too, to say that I wasn't remembering it properly, so I was glad not to be there anymore. And then soon after that I had an abscess that eventually needed surgical draining. The healing took about 5 months. A couple of different people had talked to me about adalimumab injections at the time, but hadn't really explained to me that adalimumab specifically is very helpful and good for preventing abscesses from reoccurring. Just nobody had that proper conversation with me from the IBD pharmacy team. I spoke to a couple of different staff members, the staff of which I don't think I've seen since those interactions. I eventually then started adalimumab in, I think, March, April of 2020, like right as the pandemic really properly initially sort of hit and was impacting the UK. Whilst all that was happening as well was when I was trying to look into why my right arm hurt so much. I'd seen a rheumatologist who brushed me off, basically said that I was just fat and hypermobile, which is also a video I did a while back. And then my GP is the one who noticed that I did not have a pulse in my right arm. He referred me straight to the vascular team, which really should have been the rheumatologist's job, but because she'd discharged me without really thinking too much what it could possibly be, he kind of bent some of the protocols and just did what was best for me as a patient. Around, yeah, sort of around the same time as me starting the adalimumab injections was when I had an ultrasound of my right arm and neck, which led to the diagnosis of Takayasu's in June of 2020. Yeah, June is so good. So yeah, it was then, I think around that time was when I was sort of first properly put on steroids for like a longer term solution until we worked out medication stuff that worked for both my Crohn's and my Takayasu's. So one of the main issues is that you know, whilst the treatment for both conditions is reasonably similar when it comes to medications, like it's immunosuppressing medications, biologics, steroids, chemo drugs, things like that, there are some drugs that work better for one but not the other. I've read some studies that some biologics being used for Crohn's can lead to vasculitis, and I think I read a study in one patient, it led to that patient getting Takayasu's. I already had both babes before I got diagnosed with either, so I mean, I guess at least I don't have to worry about that in particular. Already got it, love. However, there are other medications that are better for Takayasu's, or more approved in the UK anyway, when it comes to like the bullshit of how everything has to be approved in separate countries before it's sort of okay to prescribe these medications to people. For the UK anyway, we have to do our own studies on the medications before it can be used for certain conditions, even if there's been studies done in other countries. So like in America, one of their first line medications for Takayasu's is actually adalimumab, but in the UK, I believe it is, I'm probably going to say this wrong because I haven't really had to have this conversation so much yet, toxilumab, I think, and possibly infliximab, which is also the main one used in Crohn's besides adalimumab. There's a lot of other biologics used for both. It just kind of depends on the person, really. But yeah, I think it's toxilumab, but I might be wrong, that can cause, I think, gastric bleeding in Crohn's patients. So basically what my gastro has said is that, you know, if we find medications that are working, we don't really want to change them unless we absolutely have to. So that is why we've generally been making do with adalimumab injections and Mercaptopurine for a long time. I went up to having my adalimumab injections weekly quite a while ago, and then I think it was sort of summer into autumn 2022, because it was like around when I had COVID, and just after I'd had a Takayasu's flare-up, which I also posted videos on, sort of March, April-ish time of 2022, because I had come off my steroids maybe a little bit too fast and hadn't realised that the symptoms I was experiencing were probably that rather than other things I've got going on with me, which is the unfortunate struggle of having multiple health conditions. And it was I think it was a blood test that alerted my GP that there was something not right. So yeah, after that I then had COVID, and then we started looking at changing the doses of my Mercaptopurine under rheumatology. I definitely did some videos on this as well, where we would up the dose and then my liver function test, the ATL levels, would get quite bad, so I'd have to then come off it for a week and then go back to the original dose, and the levels were fine again. And this happened 3 times. Every time was blamed on me having a virus, which definitely didn't have. The first one was blamed on, oh, a lot of people post having a COVID infection have raised ALTs for a while, so it could be that. And then it was just blamed on me supposedly picking up viruses. It was sort of changed that 3rd time when I said, look, I've literally got a virus now, and this blood test says that everything's fine, so it can't just be a virus. Every time this is happening, like this is the 3rd time it's happened, I don't think it's just a virus. I think there's something else that needs to be looked into. But it has always been sort of openly said and discussed that rheumatology don't really use Mercaptopurine, so they are generally lacking in understanding, information, experience of using it. I then spoke to my gastro in January of 2023, asked him some questions about it, and he was like, yeah, I think it could possibly be this one thing, and we just need to do a blood test, and then I can put you under like the IBD pharmacy teams, like monitoring and managing, because they are the people who are the most expertise in Mercaptopurine in particular, and what they're looking for and what to like look at and manage and keep an eye on, etc. So yeah, basically we did this blood test and it showed that my body changed in this very rare way. Who's surprised? Not me. That my body used to be able to metabolize thiopurines. I can't remember exactly what that family of drugs are called. I think it's thiopurines. My body has stopped being able to process Mercaptopurine correctly, because I had that blood test done back in 2019 when I was initially started on the medication. So my body went from being able to process it to no longer be able to process this medication by itself, which then led to, for a while, just trying to get my ALT levels back to normal, and then looking at starting allopurinol, which is often used in, I think, gout, gallbladder problems, stuff like that. But basically it's a drug that can help with your body's ability to process certain medications properly. So I think because my body wasn't processing it properly anymore, it was being processed incorrectly, either I think through the kidneys and liver, and the allopurinol would put it back to whatever kind of processing it was before. Like, I don't even know the specifics of these bits and pieces. It's a little bit hard to find that information and understand it. I do remember looking into it, so I have some vague recollection of that sort of thing. I can't find where I read this, so I can't actually remember if that's correct about it being processed through the liver and kidneys incorrectly. But like, one of the things I enjoy about making these videos is that usually I will also learn more through this editing process, because I like to try and support what I say, try to find the sources that explain it. So through doing that for this video, I actually relearned, because I do remember that I did learn this part but forgot when I was filming the video, the lack of this specific enzyme that breaks down thiopurines. I think that's how you pronounce the thiopurines, so I don't think it's thiopurines, I think it's thiopurines, but whatever. It's not even necessarily the fact that it's being processed wrong, it's a build-up of that medication in your body, which can then do a whole lot of other damage. So some of the things that I read included things like bone marrow damage. That was sort of the main concern for a lot of this particular thing. So it can kind of permanently damage your immune system rather than just temporarily suppressing it, and can cause anemia. So then it kind of starts showing as like pale skin, feeling weak, shortness of breath, extreme tiredness, low numbers of white blood cells as well, which can lead to life-threatening infections. And then easy bruising and bleeding. Yeah, basically they usually give these medications in really small doses, which is what my rheumatologist has said about the Azathioprine. She keeps saying like a real baby dose, like a baby dose to start off with. But it seems like they can still be paired with other medications like allopurinol, to reduce the risk of hematopoietic toxicity. And that, unfortunately, the TPMT deficiency does not appear to cause any health problems unless you're on these medications. So it's like typical that I am like, I think it was like 0.3% of people in the world have thiopurine S methyltransferase deficiency, but I still can't find anything about the commonality of changing from being able to process this medication and into not being able to process it. So yeah, I just wanted to add some of those clarifications. But the allopurinol was making me feel really sick if I took it in the morning without food, which then added to the problems of trying to work out how and when to take medications and keep it regular enough so that it doesn't affect other things. The other issue was as well Mercaptopurine. You're not really supposed to take it with dairy products. There's something in dairy that limits the absorption of Mercaptopurine into the body. So yeah, unfortunately, everything I have in the morning will always have some kind of dairy in it, even if it's lactose free. I think it was still saying that it was something unrelated to the lactose that was the issue. Me now just finding out that actually the milk thing is not proven either way. I will be linking a study down below from 2007 that says it could be possible that dairy products limit absorption or whatever, but also a link to Great Ormond Street Hospital's page on Mercaptopurine that literally says the opposite, and also like acknowledges that there was a previous understanding around dairy products. So who fucking knows? Who fucking knows? So I kind of had to try and work out how the fuck to take this medication. So I was continuing to take Mercaptopurine in the morning with all my other meds before I had any food. And then I was trying to remember to take allopurinol with my breakfast every day, but I was forgetting, and like apparently even missing one dose affected my blood test levels, because that happened a few times. That 1 month they were fine, and then the next month they were like not as good because I missed one dose of allopurinol. So I tried to take it in the evenings, and that was worse. We tried upping my lansoprazole as well in case that would help with the nausea. Didn't help. And honestly, it didn't even really help to take allopurinol with food. I still felt quite nauseous, but then also I've been experiencing those sorts of issues for a while through 2023. So yeah, it was very difficult. I also had to start at a really low dose of Mercaptopurine. I was on 10 milligram tablets for a really long time because allopurinol basically amplifies how much medication is actually used and processed in the body. So by the time I was at like a 20 milligram dose, it was more like 60. So yeah, we had to go really slowly in this sort of process. But that also meant that I had to get those 10 milligram pills from the hospital directly. So I had to email the IBD pharmacy team to get them to sort a prescription and then find time to go to the hospital to go pick it up, which just kind of added an extra layer of inconvenience and difficulty to just generally all of my health issues I had and have going on. I think sometimes I'd have a couple of months worth, sometimes it'd be 3 months worth, sometimes it would be less than that depending on what the next plan was. And there was some issues that generally there's not, at the time there wasn't a shared care agreement in place that allowed these 10 milligram tablets to be prescribed through a GP because they're just too expensive. Yeah, they're like, I had a few conversations with the IBD pharmacy team about wanting to try and at least get to sort of like that minimum of 25 milligrams because that's the easiest and smallest amount like dose wise I could access through a GP, because it's 50 milligram tablets that I cut in half. They said they would help me do that, and I sort of discussed the concerns I had about, after all this had been sort of sorted, all of the responsibility being back on my rheumatologist and only my rheumatologist. And they said that they would still be able to help and assist with monitoring this stuff for safety reasons. So yeah, roughly autumn of 2023, the IBD pharmacy team were done with that. They removed themselves from responsibility. My rheumatologist okayed trying to go to 25 milligrams, so we tried that. I started to not feel great a few weeks into doing that, which was basically the similar kind of symptoms I was getting originally when I was having ALT rises from being on this medication, but it definitely wasn't as bad as then. So I wasn't sure if it was just not feeling well or the drugs. Then I had that midline and MRA, and they did blood tests, and that blood test showed that yeah, my ALTs has gone up, not as high as they had been, but definitely like quite high, and that my blood acid was very high as well, which I think is a kidney thing. When I saw those results, I went into trying to like fix it mode, because I was like, look, we need to like work out what the fuck we're doing. I kind of had enough of this back and forth between departments. I emailed the IBT pharmacy team to let them know about the blood tests. I also emailed both rheumatology teams, my local and the specialist Takayasu's team, and I think I eventually emailed my gastro as well, like directly. Nobody would do anything. My specialist team, when I saw them in November, and then also after this email, they'd said that They also don't use Mercaptopurine. Again, it's just a rheumatology team thing. Like, rheumatology doesn't use Mercaptopurine very much. So they didn't know what would be best to do, what to do in this situation. And I asked a few questions of my IBD pharmacy to try and find out what sort of the best next steps might be for myself, trying to find a way to have informed consent when nobody was either able to share information or refused to share information, and they wouldn't answer any of those questions, even from like a safety and health point of view. I never heard from my gastro. But eventually my rheumatologist rang me. She was a bit busy, so wasn't able to ring me right away, but she rang me, I think, within a couple of days to talk me through what to sort of do next and how I'm feeling and all that sort of thing. I came off my Mercaptopurine to have a blood test and see how my ALTs were doing after a couple of weeks of being off the Mercaptopurine. Nobody really told me what the next steps were at the time, so I ended up in a bit of a limbo there again. But yeah, I did the blood test. The ALTs were coming down, but they still weren't like normal, but they were closer to normal than they were. But however, I started to get some gastro symptoms. I was getting a lot of lower back pain when I ate and when I needed to pass a bowel movement. I think there were some other things, but I can't remember exactly what else was going on. But I ended up emailing the IBD nurse team, so that's a different group of people. And I sort of said, like, I don't really know who to speak to at the moment / any more about this, but I've come off this medication. I've put myself back on like a really low dose. I was literally cutting my 50 milligram, fuck off, 50 milligram pills into quarters, because I think it was to do with me coming off that medication for so long and not really having anything sorted sooner by anybody. Yeah, I said I'd come off it for a while, but I'd put myself back on like a low dose with allopurinol, and I feel like this is coming on because of that, and that clearly I need some kind of medication, whether it's Mercaptopurine or something else, to manage Crohn's stuff too. So she set up doing a calprotectin test, which is the inflammation of a stool sample. She also let me know that actually my rheumatologist had been talking to my gastro. She could see that there was communication between the two of them. My rheumatologist didn't want to start any medications without the okay of my other consultant, which I appreciate. I think is fair enough. But also I was like, I don't think he'll have any issue with that, because this whole issue is a pain in my ass, literally. Apparently they had agreed that I could change to Azathioprine, which is something I'd said to my rheumatologist. I was like, at this point I'm kind of tempted just to change over to this other medication, even though I've been told generally it's best to stick to what is working. But yeah, I kind of expected somebody to contact me. Usually somebody contacts me directly, whether it's by email or phoning me about that sort of thing, but nobody did. So I was a little bit like, okay, great. Thanks. So yes, I did the calprotectin test, and then I had a rheumatology appointment coming up anyway, and that's where we sort of discussed what was going to happen next. We did the usual tests and monitoring things and just had a conversation generally. She gave me a prescription for Azathioprine, gave me instructions that I would come off the Mercaptopurine again for a week, to then start the Azathioprine a week later, and then I will start having early monitoring blood tests every 2 weeks from then. So I think I need to book those. I haven't booked any of those blood tests yet because life, which is definitely better than my first round when it came to the initial monitoring for Mercaptopurine. They wanted blood tests weekly, and that meant that my body didn't even have enough time to sort of heal from the first lot. So blood tests became very painful through that process. So every 2 weeks at least gives me a bit more healing time, which is important. But yes, apparently generally I've not really been able to find a definitive answer for this. I did find a study that was talking about using allopurinol with both Mercaptopurine and Azathioprine, so I am a bit concerned that I'll have the same issues that I had with Mercaptopurine, which is one of the things I'd asked the IBD pharmacy team and they did not answer. My rheumatologist says that they are different. They have different processes, so I am kind of just going with that. If anybody watching this knows a bit more about that, please let me know in the comments, or if you found any good sources for that, because I found it really difficult to find anything to sort of say whether they were different enough that they had different processes. Because honestly as well, trying to explain and Google and research the right names for things like to do with the sort of my Mercaptopurine blood tests I'd been having about how my body processes thiopurines and stuff was also very hard to find and understand. Everywhere uses a very slightly different like name for the tests. It's been very confusing generally. So yeah, if anyone has any useful information that's not that difficult to understand, please let me know. Because I've not been able to find any myself. So that's kind of what we're going off of so far. Yeah, I think initially I'm having bi-weekly blood tests, so every 2 weeks, and then I think it'll move to every 4 weeks. But I do have to get the prescriptions from my rheumatologist to then get, but at least I can get the prescription from any pharmacy rather than always the hospital. That makes it a little bit easier. Yeah, it's just another one, I think, one of those things that you have to try and like really carefully and closely monitor and make sure you get things done at the right times. So yeah, I started on a Thursday, so I don't think usually a lot of the staff are around for blood tests at my GP practice on like Fridays. So I think a lot of my blood tests will still have to happen like on like a Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. So yeah, my blood test will be a few days later than like on the exact day, but I'm sure that's fine as long as it's done every 2 weeks and then every month. Hopefully I can get in for those appointments. We'll see. That'll be next week's, or well, technically this week's job. Like this week I will have to be like contacting my GP practice for blood tests and stuff. I get given blood forms, either the like proper hospital ones or they just print some off for me, so I bring those into my blood test appointments with at like GP practices. And yeah, I also let my rheumatologist know at that appointment that the specialist Takayasu team want to have this MRA done yearly, but I had such a bad experience with their team up there that I have told them that I won't be going back for any of those scans, that they will have to sort it out with my rheumatologist locally, to get it done locally, because like I said in my other videos about my MRIs, this local team have always been really nice to me, even if, you know, even when things have been difficult and really not fun and horrible and I've had like a breakdown or a panic attack or whatever, or they've struggled to cannulate me, they've always been nice to me. Whereas in London they were just, yeah, watch that video. I don't even want to think about that anymore. But yeah, I just wanted to give her that heads up of like, yeah, by the way, they want this done yearly, so I've told them they'll have to sort that out with you for next year and onwards, because I refuse to go back to their hospital for any MRIs at all, if that's what their staff are like there. Also, I've noticed that I still have a scar from the MRI, the midline I had done. Like, it looks very small, but I think it's keloid, because it looks a bit funny. It's a little bit raised. I noticed it maybe last week, so didn't realize it was there. But yeah, it definitely looks kind of like shiny and a bit raised, kind of like a keloid scar. I had / have some scars sort of like that on the back of my ear from like a really fucked up time with one of my piercings. Yeah, I don't know whether I'll bother doing anything about it, whether I should regularly rub in oil and stuff for that or not. I doubt I'll be getting any midlines really again, at least anytime soon, because I don't think they really do those at my local hospital. But if things really are shit, then we're gonna have to have some discussions. But yeah, I think I've already discussed on here as well that I've had conversations with the MRI team at my local hospital as well, that somebody who works there is an ex-phlebotomist, so as long as she's working, I shouldn't have any issues with being cannulated, and if she's not working, then they do have and use the IV team to access people with their like ultrasound machines and stuff, which has helped generally with the idea of having to keep having cannulation for different scans. But yeah, that is something I don't have to think about for 10 months. And yeah, for now it's just the process of going through with starting Azathioprine. So I think I will have been on it for about a week when this video goes live. So yeah, very early in all of that. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully fine. But yeah, generally that was my video for this week. I just wanted to share an update of all of that shit, where that's gone, where it's going. Let me know if you have any questions. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe and share my videos. It really supports the channel. And yeah, I do at the moment I'm trying to split it like 50-50 between media analysis videos and more like chronic illnessy personal experience / educational videos. So if there's anything in particular that you would like me to talk about, let me know in the comments. But otherwise, I'll see you next week. Bye.